read Invincible, there are some things you might want to know. Getting into comic books can sometimes be a daunting experience, especially when you don't know where to begin. Don't worry, baby, I got you. What better way to start than with one of the easiest and most well-written characters, Invincible. Yeah, I'm doing that gag. I don't care what you say, it's happening. And with the new season kind of on hold, now is the perfect time to get into the comic books and even get ahead of the story itself. It is the year 2023. Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King has just been released. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was set to be released the following year. And where was the MCU in all of this? Nobody knows, because it wasn't even thought of yet. And it was in this glorious year that a humble man with $40,000 of credit card debt by the name of Robert Kirkman became known as the writer and creator of Invincible. I told you, I'm doing this gag. I harbor no regrets. And sure enough, with Invincible being what it was, it went nowhere. It was not doing well, like at all. There was like 0 sales going to this comic book because it wasn't a well-known character like Spider-Man and Batman and Superman were. But thankfully, dear old Bob is a genius writer, and he had in his pocket a plot twist that would change the superhero genre in a way that hasn't been played with before on any form or medium. You know the one I'm talking about. But rather wait until issue 25 to deliver this plot twist. He takes some advice and he pushes it forward to issue 7. Yeah, the comics were not doing well, like, at all. But thankfully, with the plot twist being set up and delivered in issue 7, we actually got a really exciting run and set up one of the most climactic superhero stories that's ever been written. And keep in mind, it's 2003, so this kind of story has never been done before, and it's never been achieved to the level of success like it has in this particular run. The comic books themselves run for a total of 144 issues, which is roughly about 25 volumes or 3 compendiums, depending which format or printed edition you're buying. Side note, depending on what digital edition or format that you are buying will change how many volumes or compendiums and the sizes are inevitably. So make sure that whatever size or digital format you are collecting, you are sticking to that digital edition or format, whichever one that is. I went for the 3 compendiums because I love this story so much. I knew I was going to buy the whole thing, so I just bought it in one big bundle. Also, side note, because you're probably new to comics, if you've clicked this video, maybe you're gonna want to understand that a volume is a collection of individual issues that have been put into one neat little book. And a compendium is a collection of volumes being put into one neat little book. So for Invincible, for instance, one compendium is about 1,000+ pages, whereas a volume can range anywhere between 173 to 300, depending on what digital edition you're buying. And then an issue is roughly about 25 pages, give or take. However you want to collect these comic books, that's up to you. But what's really important to note here is that the story of Invincible has finished.
You suck.
I know, bummer. But not really, it's actually kind of a great thing. He's not some ongoing character like Spider-Man or Superman or Iron Man or anything that Marvel or DC have to throw at you. See, remember when I said that Invincible came from an independent comic book company? No? Ah, okay. See, Invincible came from an independent comic book company called Image Comics. When really, in the grand scheme of things, when we say that something's indie, we just mean that it's not Marvel and it's not DC. And that's not a bad thing. Great story is a great story no matter where it comes from. A bad story is a bad story no matter where that comes from too. But because Image Comics is branded as an independent comic book company, their focus is aligned to give the power of the story and where it goes to its creator and writing team or artist, whoever is in charge of developing and forwarding the story. Which means if a writer wants to change the character's status quo, if he wants to develop a character in a particular way, or if they want the story to end, they can. And in a world where Marvel and DC dominate in competitive sales, to get to 144 issues of a comic book which has no official ties to any fandom is an incredible feat, and one that should be celebrated amongst the entire comic book community, and it is. You see, most stories in comic books, they don't get 144 issues to tell one really long story. Not even Batman, not even Spider-Man.
I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not gonna speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
Well, Spider-Man did get one, but it's rare. It doesn't happen often. It's not a common thing. More often than not, by the time you get to 144, you've gone through like 3 official reboots. So to get to over 3,000 plus pages to tell your story, that's a win. And the ending they have put on this story is so mwah. I mean, we've seen what a bad ending does to a story. We see how it ruins the narrative and it leaves such a bad final taste in our mouth. This story does the exact opposite. The entire time that you're reading this comic book, it very slowly, very carefully, very meticulously starts to feel like it's all heading in one particular direction. And as we get to see these chain of events unfold, we begin to realize that, yeah, this does have a final moment to its story. And the fact that we see that final moment, that it feels satisfactory, that it feels like everything we've been reading has been leading to this point, and it achieves it and it pulls it off in a way that is so fantastic to this person's character and their development, and just to the natural world building as well, and how everything kind of gets flipped on its head in such a brilliant way. It truly is a fantastic and incredible ending, and I cannot wait to see this ending on the silver screen, streaming screen thing. It is worth every penny you spend on it. I truly loved this ending. I think it was phenomenal. And let's get back to what I was saying originally, because I've already lost track. So yeah, this story is incredible, amazing, fantastic, and terrific. Well, maybe not terrific. No, it's terrific. It's just one of the most compelling stories out there. And where would a great story be without great characters? Omni-Man, an alien sent to Earth to help cultivate and build and prepare its people into interstellar life, and to help this world prosper in ways it hasn't yet achieved. So in terms of strength and powers, Omni-Man really is a Superman character. He is a parody of Superman, and unintentionally so for this story. Superman being such a righteous character, and Omni-Man seemingly being the same sort of character, at least at the start, until, you know. And what you have to remember is that this is 2003. Nobody had achieved the level of success of creating a parody character of Superman in the way that Robert Kirkman has done, and nobody had done it in such a successful manner, both commercially and critically. So this was a revelation, and a damn good one at that. And it's through Omni-Man that we actually start to see the main themes and plots and messaging of this story come through, between Mark trying to wrap his head around what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. And without going too much into spoil, like this is a small little spoiler. Omni-Man is going to have one of the best character arcs in the entire story, flat out. J.K. Simmons being the voice, oh, so good, so good. Anyway, his character development in the comic books is going to be incredible. It's going to be amazing, because he just goes through so much growth. And seeing where he starts to knowing where he's going to end as well, I am so excited for all of you guys to get involved and start reading this comic book, so you and I can have that conversation, because yes, it's so good. But Omni-Man is not the only supporting character in this large cast of superheroes that make for an incredible and compelling story. You obviously have the love interest of Amber, and slight spoilers, Adam and Eve, but like it's kind of already hinted at that in the show, so you'll be fine. And to me, this is probably one of the more weaker elements to the story, because it doesn't... It kind of goes through this will they won't they relationship with these characters, and it just ends up getting very angsty, very kind of teenage focused, and these are characters that are at university and young adults, and it's a bit, yeah. Then you have characters such as Rexplode, Rudy/Robot, Monster Girl, Cecil, and the whole Guardians of the Globe. And each of these characters don't just have compelling backstories, they don't just have really amazing powers, they also have their own development and growth in this story. Which too often or not, I see side characters being forgotten and left to the side. And this story does not do that. It keeps these characters in play, because all of what they go through reinforces what Mark will be going through as his time as Invincible. You thought I forgot about it, but I didn't. I'm circling back to that gag. And all of this ultimately enriches the narrative and the messaging that this story leaves behind. But where this story truly shines is in its villains.
I was promised this world offered worthy opponents. But oh, how you disappoint.
See, some of these villains are just straight out monstrous villains. By monstrous, I truly mean monstrous. I'm talking they will wipe out an entire city, clock off at 5 p.m, beat traffic home in time for dinner, and call it another day like it was any old Tuesday. Whereas some of the other villains, that's where the line begins to blur. Not in them becoming good, but in good guys manipulating the villains. See, what happens throughout this story is that sometimes Mark will go up against the villain, defeat said villain, but then several issues later, we see that the good guys have actually been manipulating and abusing the villains for their own ends. Meaning the villains are being used and abused by society in order for the good guys to continue being good. It becomes way less black and white and a lot more gray.
That's the problem with demons. You only see good and evil, black and white. Well, I need to keep things gray.
And the Voltrumites. Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't talk about them, but I want to. I mean, sometimes it even makes you want to ask the question, is the villain wrong? Did the villain actually kind of have a point? And it plays out to the end that maybe they did in a way. Like, not in the sense that they should have done the way they did it, but what happened as a result of their actions as villains ultimately ended up being kind of a good thing for us as the everyday citizens. Because ultimately, it's through these villains that we see the message of this story shine the most. But where would this story be without its main character, Mark Grayson, aka... the son of Omni-Man and the spiritual successor to who will be the next greatest superhero on Earth. Or at least that's how the story begins. What follows is a journey that deconstructs this idea of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, and ultimately do the means actually justify the ends. Sorry, other way around. Do the ends justify the means? There we go. That's the Mark has to traverse a world where his mixed feelings towards his father is also getting in the way of his day-to-day life as a superhero and his day-to-day life as just a regular human that walks around on Earth. He goes into space and battles alienoids. He goes through portals and multiverse travels. He goes through all sorts of shenanigans and wild superhero events, all whilst trying to wrestle with his relationships and his love life and his commitment to university / high school, depending where you are up to in the story. So for Mark, growing up isn't just about trying to become a superhero, it's kind of asking the question, is it right to be a superhero? Is that the best path for me? Is there other ways I can use my ability? And all of that in this crazy, bizarre, messy world, it's everything that Mark is going to have to go through in order to get to the end of the story. And it's going to happen in the most painful way, and it's such an enriching and compelling story. Completely botched my ending and now I have to do this. But where do you actually begin with Invincible? Well, remember when I said that Invincible was an independent comic book series? Yes? Cool! That means all you have to do is start with issue 1 and continue your way through the series by either going through the 3 compendiums or the multiple volumes, depending which digital format you're getting. But if you love this story enough, there are actually multiple spin-off series that you can also get into. Namely, you've got Adam Eve having her own series and having a little bit of a spin-off with Rexplode as well. You got the Guardians of the Galaxy, no, scratch that. You got the Guardians of the Globe and their whole spin-off series as well. You've also got 2 other characters that I haven't actually mentioned yet, Astounding Wolfman and Tech Jacket. Now those 2 series are their own kind of canonical story. Yes, they intertwine with Invincible in some ways, but they very much are on their own playing field. They're their own characters and they just have the occasional crossover with Invincible to obviously promote those series. And truth be told, I haven't actually read any of the spin-off series, and that's namely because I didn't know they existed until doing this video, but also because you don't need those stories to enjoy the main show. You can watch, I am talking about the comic books. So namely, you don't need to read those other comic books to get into the comic book, the main series of Invincible itself. You can just enjoy the main series. If you're doing a reread, then yeah, then possibly jump into it, give it a go. I've even found a list online which will show you the chronological, got it, order of the stories that you need to read, including the spin-off titles. So give those a go, see what you think, and then go from there. And that's really it. I love this story. I thought this story was incredible. I think it's a perfect way to introduce yourself into superheroes and comic books, and superhero comic books as well. It captures everything you need to know. So if you're new to comic books, if you're new to superhero comic books, if you're new to superheroes, if you're new to reading, this is ultimately one of the best starts in that transition I think you can ever have. Let me know what you guys think. Do you enjoy this kind of storytelling? Do you want to see more of it? Do you not? Do you want to see this go in different directions? Are you excited for the show to continue? Let me know what your thoughts are, and as always guys, take care of yourselves, be happy and be safe. All right, peace.